In July 2011, a YouTube video was released that would slowly enter a certain channel into the Nightmare Fuel vaults. 6 short episodes and over 200 million views later, this viral miniseries came to a halt in June 2016. However, now it has given birth to a complete full series of 6 episodes and has been unleashed upon the world. At long last, let's talk about Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. There will be major spoilers ahead about the new series, as I'll be recapping key plot details, so you have been warned. The entire setup of the original concept of Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared was that it took the visuals, themes and nuances of educational children's programs with bright colourful settings, numerous puppet characters, and kicking off proceedings with jovial lessons and messages being taught, and then within minutes it completely flipped that idea on its head and deliver some of the darkest and creepiest 180s ever witnessed in parody horror comedy. However, in this episode of Nightmare Fuel, I'm going to be directing my focus towards the brand new series of half a dozen episodes, each just shy of 25 minutes in length, totaling around 2.5 hours of brand new Nightmare Fuel, whereas the first run of 6 webisodes came to around the same length as a single episode here. So let's sink our teeth in. The show follows our 3 main puppets, Red Guy, Yellow Guy, and Duck. Each episode is based around a certain topic, as so often these kinds of shows are. The chosen topics in this series are jobs, death, family, friendship, transport, and electricity. And you can bet your sweet buttons that they all take unnervingly bizarre turns. One thing I absolutely will say is that even though there are some Nightmare Fuel elements within this show, my word, it's funny. It's very Mighty Boosh or Interdimensional Cable in terms of its scatterbrained randomness, but it's executed with such laser-guided precision that every scene contains laughter to be had, though there's still plenty of unsettling spooks within. In jobs, everyone is sat around with nothing to do until a talking briefcase begins to teach the gang about the importance of having a job, giving them a million things to do, until we're introduced to the briefcase's brother, unemployed Brendan, who shines an all too real light on unemployment, being ashamed and angry, causing depression to set in. Like, that's a heavy subject, just airdropped in halfway through a jolly song, then it segues right back into the same song, completely skimming over Brendan's distress. The briefcase abandons the gang in a factory and the route from where they came becomes mysteriously blocked. So now everyone's just stuck in a job. Duck accidentally makes a little living being out of bits and parts on the conveyor belt, which is deemed faulty and crushed to dust. Then when Duck removes one of the workers' helmets, there's an exposed living brain beneath it that screams. Duck later seeks some guidance from the care hound, who is said to be a helpful aid with work problems, but it ends up being a monster hiding in the elevator that swallows Duck and spits him back out again, altering his perception of his job in the process into making him a labour zombie. Yet in a sharp twist, it's revealed that Red and Yellow have aged by 40 years, while Duck still feels like it's only been a matter of minutes since they entered the factory. Yellow's arm gets ripped off in one of the machines, and the entire factory is placed into accident mode. Turns out that the whole factory experience was just a hallucination. The tone for the rest of the series is set here. Hilarious, tackles really deep real-world issues with parody, hugely dark horrific twist, repeat. The fact they have manipulated familiar kids' TV tropes and decided to cover the scathing harsh truths of reality is what makes the fuel seep beneath the felt. Moving on to death, Duck declares he's definitely dead, or at least the newspaper does, and a random organ falls out of his body and begins to crawl along the floor, forming a pool of blood and then combining with the floorboards to become a talking coffin. The coffin then performs Duck's funeral, where he reveals his insides have been removed and via Pennywise-like childish friendliness convinces Duck to remain dead and buried. But then Yellow and Red have to live without Duck, like we actually get to see how they are impacted by Duck's absence, which is bloody deep, before a pink blob of claymation replaces Duck in the trio. While Duck experiences being awake while buried and slowly decomposing, Yellow slowly goes mad and longs for Duck, so it digs him up from his grave and returns him back home, only to find the pink blob has turned into Duck. Original Duck kills the new duck with a shovel, and Christ, the blood and gore in this series is just phenomenal. Anyway, next up is family, where two random creepy kids named Todney and Lily enter the house with messed up glaring expressions that gave me the creeps. Like, honestly, throughout this episode, this pair of absolute freaked me out, because as this one unravels, it goes all Texas Chainsaw style with disheveled grandparents gathered around the dinner table demanding a family tub of chicken that eventually everyone devours like zombies. Because that's the deal here, anything labelled family, like family-sized bags of snacks, can only be accessed by a family, with the gang being told they're not a real family by the twins. And it just goes on a really bloody dark tangent, even to a point where the kid's family tree comes alive, because pretty much everything in this show is alive, by the way, and it begins to drain the blood from Red with an enormous needle. All the trypanophobics out there would have been shaken from that one. Family was so far in the series the most disturbing yet, with each episode getting progressively more horrific. Moving now onto friendship, the gang are taught how to be good friends by Warren the Eagle, who's not an eagle, he's a worm, but is also an overly enthusiastic motivator who educates people about friendship, despite him not officially working for the friendship company anymore. And also, he's a prick himself. He's full of nervous energy and frustration, not having any friends of his own and finding it impossible to make them or take any criticism. And thus he goes completely mental, and realizing he has no friends either, so does Yellow. He gets lost in his own brain with his own set of imaginary friends that becomes a series of positively exaggerated stop frame animation. It's LSD-induced randomness in Yellow's head, but somehow even Warren is able to get in there, and is convinced to stay in the brain, while in reality, Yellow's body deteriorates. Warren gets that irritating, the brain version of Yellow disappears into another brain version, and is pursued through the black voids of the mind within the mind within the mind. The concept here is a sinister one, with Warren being a sack full of nightmare fuel in himself. Shifting across to the penultimate episode, Transport, we have a train enter the house via the fireplace who grows, only to be an elderly train that's breaking down, needing tons of meds and drinking his own supply of nightmare fuel to keep him ticking. However, the train is capable of morphing into other modes of transport, winding up as a car who leaks black liquid out of its bodywork and passes out. The imagery there itself is horrendous. It's like the equivalent of an old person bleeding out their eyes and collapsing. Losing its consciousness and becoming a car, the gang decide to commandeer Mr. Transport, with Red learning how to drive him. However, eventually, despite a suspicious series of events, Mr. Transport revives, warning Red about driving out too far. The world starts to glitch and becomes a post-apocalyptic wasteland, with everybody stranded in the lonely, decayed landscape. This one probably had the least horror elements of the series, but that ending came along and took a sharp left turn into madness. Rounding off the series is Electricity, which to me was easily the weirdest episode of this collective. After receiving an electricity bill, not knowing what that means, the gang are educated by a machine named Electracy, and she gives them all a new knowledge about how great electricity is. However, when Yellow reveals he's powered by old batteries and swaps them out for Electracy's new ones, he suddenly becomes more intelligent and aware of his surroundings. However, his newfound intelligence leads him to roam around the house, going upstairs, where things get mega messed up. He finds several rooms, each getting progressively more odd, with alternate, more intelligent versions of both Red and Duck to be found, until he comes to the final room. In there, he finds a creepy old woman named Leslie, who sits playing the piano in dim lighting, and it's suggested that the house and the entire world of the show is a world of her creation, and that she is the god of it. It's a very meta show anyway, but to provide a deep context to the world makes the whole experience shift in tone to the darkest point in the series for me. It's like a horror version of The Truman Show, with everyone's decisions and all the previous episodes' events having been manipulated by this spooky old bat living upstairs. She's been there all along, but it took Yellow's curiosity to learn that, and by becoming more clever, he wound up learning something that he never should have, the most frightening lesson taught in the series. Honestly, Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared is probably one of the funniest things I've ever watched, with razor sharp wit, and every line is tactically placed. But the horror elements and twists within are so juxtaposing to that when they do occur, they're always sledgehammers to the teeth. So many harsh realities are represented and explored here, and by using its children's show framework, it approaches the topics from a unique angle that both delights and disturbs. So to me, those horrible tonal shifts on top of the gore and its handling of subjects that are too real for a regular kids show qualifies Don't Hug Me I'm Scared into the nightmare fuel vaults. But what did you make of this one? Let me know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, a cheeky sub would be much appreciated to help the channel grow some more. I'm Connor from Unleash the Ghouls, and we shall see you next time for another dose of nightmare fuel.